Welcome to Dare, the show for startup leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs who dare to shape the future. Dare is brought to you by the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network, OEN, and Darwoft, the superpower tech team that can make your vision a reality. The Dare podcast is excited to welcome Joey Repice to the show. He's the CEO and founder of Joey's Hot Sauces, and he has an amazing following online, on Instagram, on TikTok, and he has wonderful hot sauces that people buy all over the Northwest and hopefully the world. So welcome to the show, Joey.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we really value you and your story. So tell us how you got going. How did you kick off this grand endeavor?
Yeah, it's a funny story. Basically, I had no intention of putting a food line out. I didn't come from that background whatsoever. I was looking to basically satisfy a need that my wife had. She was looking for a hot sauce that didn't have any additives, binders, sugars, preservatives, seed oils, and she was having trouble finding one, and particularly organic. So I was like, I just said, I'm just going to attempt at making this for her. Zero intention of starting a brand. And we were living in California at the time, and I was at the Mar Vista farmers market. It was a pretty big market out there, and I was, shopping, and came across some hot peppers, and I was like, I'm gonna make Lisa a hot sauce. And next thing you know, that's what I did. I went home and I was roasting peppers. I come from a very Italian background. We make everything from scratch,
Mhm.
so I've been in the restaurant industry for many, many years, over 20 years in the restaurant industry, and high profile restaurants in both Manhattan and California. And I was just around amazing chefs and around the environment. I was never behind the lines. I was more the front face of the restaurant. But I always had a passion for cooking. And I think passion is really what created the sauce. The passion that I have for my wife became the passion that became in the bottle. She loved it. I was bragging at work with friends. And one friend said, Mishka said, I want to try it. And I said, okay, $10, just jokingly. And he said, all right. And I was like, oh,
Hey, I just made a mistake.
light
Yeah.
bulb went off. And that's what started Joey's Hot Sauce, right down that rabbit trail.
Wow. So you're based in Oregon and you actually produce in Oregon as well, right?
Yes, sir.
So, and your website says that you do organic ingredients. So tell us about your process. I assume you aren't just doing this in your kitchen anymore.
Oh no. The first couple batches were in my kitchen. Like I said, we were living in LA. We were living in Mar Vista, and I would buy like peppers, organically through like Erewhon. There's like a supermarket over there, and I was doing test batches there. And I started like selling in DMs and like putting it up on Instagram and Facebook. I'm about to make a batch of hot sauce. Who wants in? And next thing you know, it went into the next person. Then we basically did a crowdfunding, and we raised a considerable amount of money for just a hot sauce brand asking for crowdfunding. But we basically took that money and we decided, like, what are we going to do? We were considering moving to Ashland at the time. We had friends, we were visiting, and then we decided to make that leap. I did some investigative work. Where can I source the peppers? So we buy fresh, and we roast. It's a big definitive in the way that we make it. Is roasting is not too typical in hot sauce brands, and particularly in like the major distributed hot sauces. They really do this process, which is almost like boiling. And I always get asked, like, what's the big difference? I'm like, well, did you ever taste a roasted chicken compared to a boiled
Mhm.
chicken? It's it's a vast difference. You get
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
roasted pepper flavor just comes through in my sauces. So, we decided to set up camp, and we found out a spot from the growers market and from the co-ops that, a lot of the organic shops around here, they source their peppers through, or their ingredients through, organically grown. So organically grown is where I source most of my peppers, contingent on the local season. Because then when it comes to the local season, I have
Mhm.
an amazing alliance, since I'm out on the streets, constantly at the
Yeah.
markets. I have an amazing connection with the local growers. So outside of the local growing season, I'm always getting them organic, and them are always organic even locally. But I buy them through organically grown, and the cycles go from like Mexico to California to local. That's kind of like the seasonality of my production and the sourcing of my peppers.
Wow, that's exciting. So you currently on your website, you have, at least I counted, at least 10 different flavors, and you have like 35,000 people who follow you on Instagram. So how do you get all of this energy in order to produce all of these different flavors, in order to do all this social media? I mean, where does that come from?
I don't know. I think, I just follow the trail of miracles, and I think people are excited about our brand. A lot of people locally, I can go around like the local shops, and they're always because like my mug is on the bottle, so a lot of people recognize me. Like, hey, Joey, And I was in the YMCA like last couple months ago, and a woman was just like, she stopped dead in her tracks. She was like, Joey, like she never met me, but she knew me as soon as she saw me. And she was
Yeah.
telling her partner, she's like, look, honey, it's Joey. And I'm like, hi. And it's a great feeling. We've gotten a grassroots following. I do a lot of seasonal sauces. When you look at that website, it does look like there are a lot. There's really only six SKUs that are the original lineups. We have the Bambino ever since my son was born, and that's my mildest sauce. We put his cute little mug on the label. You have
Yeah.
Priscilla, which was the original. It's like a nice solid medium. The 50/50 is like one step up. You got the flamethrower for those real heat enthusiasts. And you have the truffle hot sauce, which is real forage black truffles that I source. I have an Italian connection where we source real forage truffles and we grind it into the sauce. And that's not common in the truffle hot sauce realm. A lot of them just use oils and salts and stuff. So I get real forage Italian truffles. And then you got the hot honey, which actually just won a Scoville Award. We entered last year. Someone said, you should start entering stuff in award like companies. And I'm like, okay. So we did a little research and we entered, I think, two sauces in the Scoville Award. And we won third place in the Scoville Award, which is really exciting. We're actually just about to put those stickers on our hot honey. So the hot honey.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have those SKUs, and then we have the seasonality sauces, which what you saw a lot of like seasonal or market exclusive sauces, and those are really contingent on a lot of the seasonality of the partnership that I have with the growers in the valley. I'll come up with ideas of peppers that I want to use, and I'll just like try to reach out to some of the people in the valley. In fact, I had my cousins from Calabria mail me these seeds from Calabria, and we had them grown locally by Red Buttes. Patrick grew them, and we did that sauce. The paisana is what we call that one, which is like a fellow villager. And Nicole owns Flespie's in Grants Pass, and she's my paisana, which is like my fellow villager female, because paisano is guy, paisana is female. So
Yeah.
Nicole and Ryan, they're two the owners of Flespie's, and they're amazing people. And I make a sauce exclusively for their pub. That it's like a limited edition. So there's a lot of limited edition sauces that I produce. I partnered with an amazing biohacker. His name is Ben Greenfield. He's been on the
Mhm.
Joe Rogan podcast. He's got over 400,000 followers on Instagram. And, I made a sauce for him because he's been a big fan. I do a lot of just like limited edition sauces that you'll see that are really contingent on the seasonality. I've made one. Ryan Daniel is a fantastic car racer, and he turned me on to Hatch chilies because he comes out of that. He was
Oh
wrong.
yeah.
So yeah, so I make the New Mexican mild, and that sauce I make once a year. That's one of my most sought after sauces, by the way. It's a green sauce. So yeah, there's a lot of sauces that you see on the website, but I'm essentially managing, five, and I make a lot of wonderful seasonal sauces. During that season, like the summer, it's really intense for me because I'm keeping up with production of like the regular sauces, and then
Yeah.
I'm flipping in these like micro productions that are one-offs. So it gets like the kitchen is one hell of one hot place to be in.
Yeah, well, I noticed when I was cooking up peppers and or hot peppers and onions the other day, I started flushing, I got tears, and I was thinking, wow, people who do this industrially, they must have a lot of protection.
Yeah, well, when it comes down to like my original sauces, it's bearable in the kitchen. But when you're making something like the flamethrower, which
Yeah,
is something we're
Toronto or
using that
yeah,
it uses like Carolina Reapers and Scorpion Trinidads and Dragon's Breath. And now those peppers will affect like the atmosphere. So yeah, you definitely want to put on masks and just be extremely careful when you're
yeah, yeah,
handling that, because yeah, I've gotten it on. It gets in your
yeah,
hair. It gets in your hair when you wash your hair. Your eyes would burn.
yeah.
It's
Well,
penetrating those
so
peppers.
speaking of being extremely careful, I want to turn our attention to something that's not the kind of hands-on work of making the sauces, but instead the hands-on work of making the company. Because a
Hmm.
lot of people sell a bottle of hot sauce to a friend for 10 bucks. A lot of people can do that, but not everyone can leverage that moment of insight into an actual functioning company where your product is on store shelves and you have employees and you have distributors and all of that. So, how do you go from that moment of I have a bottle of hot sauce to I have a company? Like, tell us more about that journey.
Yeah, it's still a complete journey for me too.
Yeah.
I am in the midst of, embracing being like that is my title as a job, as an income, a hot sauce maker. We started out, on the grassroots and then we just, my wife was basically the bread earner at the time and she wanted us to just focus on like seeing if this can like, come into fruition. So I had the liberty to like just invest a lot of my energy and time 100% as she was basically, supporting us at the time
Yeah.
when we first moved here. And, I just went boots on the ground, a lot of farmers markets, a lot of special events that were going on in the Valley. We just looked at really getting people to experience the sauce. There's a lot of hot sauce realm. It is very saturated, but there are not a lot of people doing organic, and not a lot of people are doing roasted, and particularly the flavor profile that I approach. And but how do you get someone to try that? And we found
Yeah.
that just boots on the ground, kind of got that momentum going. And my wife's background is in social media. That's what she does for other
That helps.
brands. Of course,
Yeah.
so like, she's my partner in life and also a partner in the brand and is like, spearheading a lot of our
Yeah.
campaigns, so to speak, online. So, we just continue to get wholesale accounts that got started. We started with Marketed Choice pretty early on. We were really lucky. I knew someone inside of Marketed Choice and he tried the sauce. He thought it was magnificent. He presented it to John Boyle, who's in charge of the Mojo company, which really is extremely incredible for like small brands. You get to take your brand and you don't have to worry so much about distribution. You essentially, they have a system where you're dropping everything off at one store that gets circulated, internally. So they have this internal circulation. So you don't have to necessarily be concerned about distribution. You have to get everything obviously legal as far as your product and shelf stable and inspected. But we decided to see where this can go, and one thing just keeps leading to the next. I was doing one special event and the Eric, one of the top guys over at Ray's food place, and he approached me and I gave him a sample and I gave him a spiel. I didn't even know who he was, and the next thing you know, he gave me a card. And then we got into most of all Ray's food places and the products moving there as well. So I got into natural, not grocers. Rogue Naturals is a small distributor, and Thomas that he runs a tight ship out there. So that they're in a lot of little mom and pop places up the coast, and so we've just been really trying to do the next right indicated action. But we have had complication as far as scaling. How do we scale from there and get national distribution? And that's been a challenge because a lot of times the thing about my brand is that we don't have this exit strategy. We don't want an exit strategy. In fact, we want to put a food product out that people can trust. And I have great visions of like putting beyond just hot sauces and hot honey. I love to see, popcorn, jerkies. I just think that people dressings, I just think that people are longing for a higher quality product that doesn't have any of this stuff. I mean, you're looking at all that's going on in the movement right now, and there is momentum. There's a lot of like biohackers that just talk about the science of the correlation of what you're eating and how you're feeling. And that's been my motto since like day one, since we started our brand. I live a pretty organic lifestyle. My wife loves
Yeah.
organic lifestyle. We feel like there's a lot of people that are looking for things that there's a connection to the product, not just like great marketing and sometimes a lot of good flavor profile because they just know the science of what sensories to hit to make something appealing. But just because it tastes good doesn't mean it's good for you. Unfortunately, there's a lot of manipulation in the food industry, and so we want to basically get onto the marketplace in a way that to create a product that people can trust. And so we don't, it's hard for us to get money because a lot of times the venture capitalists are really looking for an exit strategy because they have that connection and they want to build a brand. It's almost like flipping a home where they'll get the money invested, then they'll get the big sharks involved, and then it'll consume the brand. And then essentially, I've seen it time and time again where
Yeah.
the brand's integrity just drops down. So everything that basically made this brand explosive onto the market has been taken out from underneath it. And even though it might be still successful in quotations as far as like driving revenue, but it's to me that's not successful. I want to do both. I want to supply, I want to be the bread earner of my family, and
Yeah.
I want to just create incredible food products out in the market.
Right. And you want to preserve your integrity as a company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I got my mug on the face too. Can you imagine if I turned my back on everybody? I'm gonna have to change, get some contacts and shave my beard and grow my hair long or something.
Yeah, yeah, you've actually put your face right there. Yeah. Well, that's a really inspirational story, Joey. What else do you think we should know about your journey? And do you have any words of wisdom for startups who might want to follow your path?
Yeah, I mean, words of wisdom. I always say people need to just really follow their passion. I think it's really important to follow your passion. Use as much tools out there to get the insight into the industry that you're going in and the competitiveness. Know what is the differentiator between you, whatever you're creating, and your competition. Know it intimately. Get straight with your numbers. Partner with somebody in your numbers, be on top of your sales, what's working, listen to your audience. I think it's really important to listen to your audience, find, you find your groove. We just got into Safeway. We got into 10 Safeways, which is
Yeah.
that just happened. And, we haven't even hit the shelves yet. So that's pretty exciting for us because they're saying if that goes well, it's like a 6-month trial basis. You're looking at
Wow.
146 stores would be the next step from there.
Mhm.
So, and I think that a lot of people, I think they're interested in a lot more like smaller brands or just more organic, everything. It seems to be the trend.
Yeah.
So, what I'd love to do is to see my brand grow is just really partner with a person who gets our vision and really wants to partner with us to help us go nationwide, and really just get behind us and elevate us to the next level. I don't have experience in the food product industry, but we've accomplished a lot with not, just really being honest with ourselves, really being honest with our growth. We've accomplished a lot, but at the same time, there's like such a long place to go. And we would love to find a partner who would maybe like love to invest into Joey's to get us to the next place. We're beyond proof of concept. We are proof of concept. We're out there. We're
Yeah.
tangible.
That's an exciting place to be. The sky's the limit. So, last question that we always ask is, what do you dare to dream?
I dare to dream that I would love to see like me being in control of the complete growing cycle of the sourcing of our product, whatever it is that I'm going to be putting out, being able to, we can do that even locally or in Oregon, that can be done. It's pretty awesome. And So I have big dreams like that we can create a facility where we're in control of everything, every single aspect of our production, and or alignment in a co-packing facility that really understands what we're doing, that's able that, and I can still grow the peppers doing what I'm doing and just supply that person to grow. Yeah, that's my vision, is just to get across the nation. And I would love to go back to Italy and sell the hot sauce that I created from the peppers that came from that village. That would be pretty awesome. That's where my parents came from. So
Oh, that would be
that's a great
interesting.
push.
Full circle, full circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time today, Joey. This has been a great conversation. I wish you all the best at Joey's Hot Sauce.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
Thanks to our guests today for their insights into the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We wish you all the best in your startup journey. The Dare Show is brought to you by the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network and by Darwaf, the superpower tech team that can make your vision a reality. Visit us at oen.org or at darwaf.io. Thanks again for listening. Till next time.